Welcome everyone. Today we'll have another Wolcen guide. Here we're going to look at item stats selection. I know a lot of questions are coming, through YouTube and through Twitch and also on Discord sometimes, asking me what's the best item for my build and also what stats should I look for a certain build. I can't say I'm an expert for all the builds. I can demonstrate my current build with the choice of items and the choice of modifiers and stats, but I'll give you some insights to what I think might be helpful for most of the builds. Firstly, if you're going for a physical build, that is the physical damage, you need to know what kind of alignment or what kind of damage type you're in. If you're going for physical, it is material, and for example, this item adds 18% material damage. That means it's going to add 18% of any of your physical, toxic or rain damage. Followed by that, if you're going for any of the spells, and if you're going for, let's say, if you have a base item that adds towards secret damage, or if you have a fire damage attack item, those damage in wise will be amplified by items that increase that type of damage. And here I have occult damage increased by 20%. So if over here I have any occult damage base multipliers, this will increase that. So you need to be aware of what is the damage type you're looking for. Those are 3 types, and how much of that damage of a kind do you have. It's easy to see the attack numbers because here it shows everything. It's actually much harder to see the magic ones. You have to count it yourself. The best way to count it is to remove all your items and equip them one by one and look at your spells. And if you look at your spells, you need to have this perk to look at it. This perk allows you to have 2 alignments, or 2 elements. I probably pronounced it wrong. So to have those 2 means your spells will usually have 1 debuff, which is the special type it has. If it's a free spell, it's likely going to have, let me show you guys. If it's, let's say if it's a fire spell, it's going to have burn inbuilt into it with element. If it's where's the freeze? No, this is a freeze. This is the ice spell. If it's an ice spell, it's going to have a freeze inbuilt. By having a second element and also equipping item one at a time, you can see your highest spell damage number because you have a second element depending on the number of the, depending on the highest spell base damage. And if you want a detailed guide for the elements, we do have a video for that as well. I'll attach the link for you guys. So after noticing what you want as a multiplier, there's a few factors that gives the highest resource of attack boost. The first one is flat damage. You can only get flat damage, let's say 5, 10 damage to fire, to lightning, etc. onto your gears. And those are some of the most changing ones because there's so much multiplier in the game. All your perks in the game and all your stats multiply this. Because material damage 18%, it multiplies by the 9 to 3. The damage here, bonus damage 380% or 379%, it multiplies the existing base number you have. And if you remember in the perks, we have lots of those. We have melee physical damage, we have the attack damage, those all get multiplied. And because they get multiplied, you should be looking out on the highest attack weapon, added flat damage on the rings and also on amulets for your spells or the attack. If you're going for rage build, you should go for attack. If you're going for spell build, you should go for items that gives you spell damage. For example, this one, 11 to 17 secret damage will kind of amplify into at least 100 or 500 additional damage. And I can give you guys an example. So I'll take my rings off for now, and let's have a look. This ring itself does not have any additional stats added to it. It has 9 to 13 fire and 12 to 17 lightning. If I equip this ring, let's see how much damage I get.
I can't equip that.
Oh, it's level 60. Okay, let's look at a different ring then. So, same ring. But this one does have a critical chance, which I can remove, but... Oh, is that one? Okay, this one has material. This one has critical. Okay, just look at this ring. So, I was going to show you guys this one, but I'm still level 57. So, this ring still have a critical chance score, but let's not worry about the critical chance. The biggest factor is the base attack that's added to it. So notice this, it added 1,500 base attack damage. I know a bit of it is contributed by the 11% critical hit chance, but the majority of it is from flat damage. And this is one of the base reasons I can hit for so much higher with my gears. After flat damage on your necklace or amulet on your rings, you should get the highest damage on your weapons, and sometimes even a shield can give you some base stats. For example, this shield gives me 65 to 117 base damage of shadow, and unfortunately I don't do many shadow damage, but if I equip this, look at the damage. This goes up by at least 3000 plus, And that's even with a 31% block chance with a multiplier here. So yeah, this shield is actually really interesting, right? Now, after flat damage, you should be looking out for a few crucial stats. I find most builds can use cooldown reduction, and it's almost one of the tier 1 stats for me, because you could be rotating your resource, you can be casting utility spells and moving faster, you can be, you know, casting protective spells faster, and most of my gear actually have lots of cooldown reduction. If you look at it, so my helm has 23%, the chest have 24%, the pants have 21%, and even, oh, the boots did not have it. Oh, that's all. I thought I had it more. Maybe I swapped the boots over here. Even this one, my old one, has 20%. So cooldown reduction works with most of the builds. Unless you have no cooldown at all, you do want some cooldown reduction. Followed by that, the best two for damage will be critical hit chance and critical hit score. If your critical hit chance is about 50%, you can look towards more critical hit damage. And this damage is always multiplier. It's a multiplier, that means for each damage you do, it multiplies on top of that. It's not an addictive one. If it's an addictive one, it will add towards damage like those. That's not what you want. So after critical hit damage and critical chance, what you want to look for is, depending on your build, because I do a lot of physical, I'm looking for material damage. And this is 27% material damage. It's actually not that much damage. And the bigger factor for this armor to give me damage is actually coming from the critical chance it provides. That's the biggest factor. One thing to keep in mind, you should always be looking out for items with high stats. Why is that? Because if you look at ferocity, here I will be gaining the critical hit attack score because of ferocity. Also because it's the highest source of my stats, you will get 5% or 0.5% of bonus damage for each point. So this 33 ferocity is giving me 33 critical hit chance score. Also is, and that actually gets amplified by my other perks. Yeah, here it gets amplified by other perks, and also it will give me at least, I think, 16 to 17% additional damage. So in reality, any of the base stats you have will give you bonus damage. So the highest one will give you 0.5%, the second highest will be 0.4, the next one will be 0.3, next one will be 0.2. So if I'm looking at the 26 agility here, I can see that this 26 agility is actually giving me 26 times 0.3, which is about, what? Ooh, 6 point, damn, it's a 7.8, yeah, 7.8 additional damage, right? So yeah, math still works. So what you want to do is, sometimes you can have an item that gives you a lot of these stats. And this is when you look at, hey, material damage and toughness. My toughness is the second highest. That means I'm getting at least close to 13% additional damage on top of the HP I get. So that's really good. Lastly, if you're going to spend rage, and if you're actually having trouble with reducing the amount of the exchange, or if you're having trouble to get enough mana, or if you have trouble enough with the rage, because I need rage to be over 750, what I can do is I can have some rage reduction multipliers here. I can go with the shoulder one for rage and willpower reduce, and also the ones with the gloves, and lots of those have some really good stats for those. One thing to keep in mind is this can be a double-edged sword, because if I'm spending a lot of rage and I have a few skills that actually spends willpower that transfer back to rage, and that's when the reduction is not great, because you actually don't transfer willpower back to rage that fast. But if you don't have any willpower spenders, you want to reduce the reduction as much as you can. So this way you can always stay on top of 750 for me. But on the chance if you have a really good transfer spell, let's say if our ranger back then, which will use the blink as a transfer spell that spends out the willpower back into rage, at that time you will not be looking for the reduction of cost. What you'll be looking for is you look for transfer time reduction. So that item, or that particular set of stats, let me have a look where it is. Oh, it's gonna be a while. Should have this prepared, my bad. Let's see. Reduction. Ah, there you go. Oh, it's endless list. Endless list is here. So, for this particular item, if you go for the support 3 gem, you have 18% reduction of transfer time between willpower and rage. That means you spend more rage, or you spend more willpower, you transfer quicker, so you get the other resource quicker. But if you were to reduce that particular cost, you can't transfer as much. So it's better to transfer quicker than to transfer less. That's the idea. And that's when you have a good transfer between the rage and willpower. Lastly, with the stats, one thing that's really underrated by people, but I feel it's actually pretty legit, it's just having a perk of movement speed. We don't often see this, but sometimes when having movement speed and not having it can make a bit of difference just with moving, creeping, and just, you know, fighting all alone. So here I have about 6.7 movement speed. Let's have a look how fast I run. It's kind of mediocre, but if I cast this spell again, so this also gives me movement speed. So if I cast it again, oh, 0. It's 0.8. So notice I run a little faster. Everything stacks, and if I lose the movement speed on both, so I lose the scream and I lose the boots, I actually run really slowly. It's not the biggest factor, but sometimes when the boss are casting a spell and if you want to dodge something, this might help. Other times, if you just, you know, running and fighting, this might help. So this is not a number one stat, but on the boots you can roll really high with it. You can roll over 20% on it. On other gears, usually 5 to 10% is the highest, and that is random as well. So keep that in mind. So this is pretty much for the guide. Let me know what you guys want for the other guides that we find. Of course, if I come into something interesting, I'll let you guys know. And you know, if it's something that's really game changing, I'll definitely let you guys know. And lastly, definitely let me know in the comments or, you know, through Twitch or through Discord if you have a suggestion of a build or anything you want to show to everyone. I'm happy to discuss with you. We're happy to build it together and share with everyone. I'll definitely have a shout out for your build as well. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this particular guide. More guides and more tips will be coming into the end game, so definitely subscribe onto YouTube and leave a follow on Twitch if you can. That'd be really helpful. Thank you guys.